Conference Committee report on House File number 3420, an act relating to drought relief. The report is addressed to the Honorable Melissa Hortman, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable David J. Osmek, President of the Senate. We, the undersigned conferees for House File number 3420, report that we've agreed upon the items in dispute and recommended as follows. The Conference Committee report is signed by 5 of 5 members of the House and 5 of 5 members of the Senate. Sundin moves that the report of the Conference Committee on House File number 3420 be adopted and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Conference Committee.
I recognize the author, Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The Agriculture Committee actually had 2 conference committees open this year, one on drought and one on ag, housing, and broadband. Since we were able to get agreement on ag and broadband, those items were referred to the Drought Conference Committee under Joint Rule 2.06. The Conference Committee report before us reflects a joint package of supplemental ag, finance, disaster recovery and assistance, and broadband. Since time is short, I'd like to thank all the members of the Conference Committee involved, the staff, nonpartisan, and caucus staff. All those helped us along the way. I mentioned them individually when the bills came through the first time, but I want to recognize everyone's efforts to do the people's work. I'll go through some of the highlights of the bill. You've heard most of this before, but we've got time this evening, so we're going to use it. Article 1 of the bill provides supplemental funding for agriculture. That's the ag portion of House File 4366. The House came in at $60 million above base in fiscal year 23 and less than that in the tails. The Senate came in at $5 million in fiscal 23 and 0 in the tails. The targets were $7.5 million and 7.5 in the tails. Obviously, with a target like that, we lost a number of really important provisions we carried to conference. However, we think this is still a strong package. A few of the highlights include animal disease response. The House carried animal disease emergency funding in the supplemental bill, and the Senate included most of their funding in the drought bill, which we'll hear again in Article 3. This Conference Committee report brings them together. In addition, an additional $1.5 million in fiscal 22 was provided to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture to help respond to the current highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreak. Between this, the drought article, and the $1 million previously passed, a total of $4 million will be available to deal with this and other animal disease responses. In addition to the $1 million in Article 3, $250,000 in fiscal year 22 and $250,000 in tails is provided for a total of $1.5 million to the University of Minnesota Vet Diagnostic Lab for equipment for additional testing capacity. Funding for Forever Green, $630,000 a year established in tails. This funding may also be used for cover crop commercialization. $500,000 in fiscal 23 for new soil health pilot program. This compromise builds from the Senate position, and we know this is an area that has strong interest and support from all different types of ag groups. 2 of the Vice Chair Vang's special initiatives, there was $827,000 for emerging farmers, $500,000 in fiscal 23 and $750,000 in tails for a new down payment assistance grant. Livestock processing issues were popular. Addressing this issue with a few large processors dominating the livestock processing, which creates problems for small and mid-sized farmers. We were going to invest $650,000 in fiscal 23 and $250,000 in the tails for livestock processing facility grants for small and mid-sized processors. $350,000 in fiscal 23 for a pilot program for secondary schools for meat processing education. $750,000 for the Ag Innovation Campus. Article 2 deals with ag-related statutory changes. Highlights include, while we didn't have enough additional funding for pollinator research account, we did get the extension of the fund and a broader name change. Cooperative grant funding is authorized and requires a match. The Senate would not accept the House position on treated seed and plastic seeds. There's no language for funding provisions related to white-tailed deer farmers. A few Senate provisions of interest were we reached a compromise on the proposed changes to the ACRA. We're going to raise the cap effective January 2023 and adjusted thresholds that trigger fee increases. We accepted the Senate provision that allows for small solar installations on ag preserved land. We accepted a more narrowly defined provision of exotic animals. This version takes out reference to the alternate licensing accreditation process, which many saw as weakening the process, and keeps it more focused on zoos that are currently licensed exhibitors. Animals from accredited institutions and participate in specific programs. Article 3 deals with the disaster recovery assistance. We heard the bill 3420 on April 10th and passed it through this body. The highlights would be a total of $18.4 million broken down for ag appropriations, $13.1 million, $8.1 million of that for drought grant appropriations for livestock and specialty crop farmers, $2.5 million for Rural Finance Authority disaster assistance loans. As I previously mentioned, this article provides $1.5 million for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture Animal Disease Emergency Response Funding and $1 million for the Vet Diagnostic Lab. There are some appropriations for the DNR, $5.3 million, broken down $5 million for seedling replacement. That does not include funding for shade tree replacement, and $300,000 for resolving well interferences. I will defer to Chair Eklund to explain the broadband agreement, and urge members' support in adopting the conference committee report.
I recognize the member from Couchiching, Representative Eklund.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this bill spends record amounts of needed broadband work in the state of Minnesota, a total of $210.703 million. It breaks down for $50 million from the general fund over each of the next 2 fiscal years, $25 million for each year. So we'll have RFPs that will be able to go out immediately. There's $60.703 million that comes from the ARPA Federal Capital Projects Fund. And there's an additional $100 million that comes from the federal IIJA BEAD funds for the border broadband grant program. One of the interesting things that we're doing in this bill is there's a low-density pilot program for $30 million to help townships that need broadband but have a hard time coming up with the cap and the match. So what this will do is it'll reduce the cap or increase the cap to $10 million for the project and cut the match to 25%. We'll see if that is if that'll work or if that's the right percentage that we need to do. Another interesting House position, Rasmussen bill, the line extension program funding. This will help some of our cable providers get to individually tough to reach residents. Overall, members, I think this is a very good portion of the bill. I was proud to help work on that, and I ask you to vote yes on the entire package. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the conference committee report.
Speaker.
There being no further discussion, well,
Mr. Speaker.
not yet. I recognize the member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Normally, I would stand and make a motion to not adopt the conference committee report, which is a higher motion, and we'd go through a whole dog and pony show of talking about why we shouldn't be passing this agreement tonight. And I want to thank the chair and I guess the chairs. This went out of here as 3 different bills, maybe 4, and here it is now as one bill. And I think everybody has now figured out, I can literally hear it in the tone of the voices of the people who are talking about these bills, that they know that they're not passing, that they know we've now reached the time in the session when the work's not going to get done. I can see it on your faces, and I can hear it in your voices. And I appreciate the work that you've done on this bill, and while there is some good provisions in this bill, this agreement that you've made with the Senate and with the governor is very misplaced with the priorities of Minnesotans. Minnesotans are suffering from the highest inflation in their lifetimes. This agreement spends the money that we should be using to help Minnesotans. Minnesotans care about the high gas prices that they're going to pay all summer. And the bills that you've passed out of here all session do nothing to help that, but many, many things that will actually make that worse. And Minnesotans care about the fact that their streets are not safe. And Democrats have made them unsafe, and Democrats are preventing supporting law enforcement and funding law enforcement that would actually keep them safe. So while you've swung at 3 pitches and missed all of them, and you're trying to convince us that here, a dog and pony show at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at night, when there's no chance this bill becomes law, is just a waste of everyone's time. So I'm not going to continue to waste your time by making a motion to not adopt this report and talk about all the things that are wrong with your deal. I'm just going to ask members to vote against this because it doesn't matter. This bill will not become law, and everybody in this chamber knows that. You want to know, if you're wondering at what point in session we are and how silly things have gotten in the legislature, and they always do in the last 36 hours, today, the tax conferees did a press conference announcing their deal to the press. I literally watched them sign a fake conference committee report in front of the press. So in caucus just now, I said to my members, I watched them sign the conference committee report, but for some reason it's not been posted. It hasn't been emailed to me that, yes, the conference committee report has been finalized. And I have a member that serves on that conference committee, and he said, no, we've only adopted 3. That wasn't a real conference committee report that we signed in front of the press. Why are we trying to convince people at home and the press that the work is getting done when it's not? There isn't a conference committee report on the tax bill. It was a dog and pony show, just like this is. So members, it doesn't really matter how you vote. I would say vote no, reject the whole deal, so that we can actually use the resources and the money we have to help Minnesotans with the high inflation, to help them from the high gas prices that Biden and Tim Walz are giving them. And we can use that money to keep our streets safe. But Minnesotans want their money back, and they want some help. They don't want to be ignored, and they don't appreciate a dog and pony show at 11:20 at night, conveniently after the 10 p.m. news. Everybody in this chamber knows what's going on tonight, and I can see it in your faces, and I can hear it in your voices, the defeat. The fact that you realize now that you haven't gotten your work done on time, and you haven't even begun to address the things that Minnesotans actually care about. So while there are great things in this bill, why are there trees in this bill again? This is the ag bill, not the bill for the Department of Natural Resources. This isn't where trees get funded, but there's trees in this bill. Please help us. You can't save yourselves now. It's too late. Because everybody who's paying attention at home knows that tomorrow night when that clock hits midnight, you've run out of time. And there isn't enough time to get the stuff done that you still need to get done. So we're not going to give long speeches on the floor tonight because we all want to be at home. I'm going to give one more. But I'm going to ask everybody to vote against this because it doesn't matter anyway. It's not becoming law. None of this is. So let's vote no and let's go home and go to sleep. And you know what? I recommend tomorrow night, when the clock chimes midnight, that we all go home and sleep for 7 months, and then we'll come back and do the real work that Minnesotans want.
There being no further discussion, all those in
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to make a couple of comments in closing here, but just to correct the record, this is a drought relief bill that the ag language was attached to, okay? Just a little bit of clarification on it, but I'm really thankful for all the contributions of the many members who've had their hands on this supplemental budget bill and helped to get it to the finish line. I know I'm not the only person in this chamber who wished we could have passed some of the drought measures months ago, but I appreciate all the efforts that got this bill done for our farmers, forests, and loggers, and every Minnesotan who deserves to be connected to the internet with quality service that is easy to access. This state is full of hardworking people in both urban and rural communities who get up every day to make Minnesota a better place by feeding our neighbors and the rest of the world. And I'm pleased to say this bill will have a positive impact on every one of them. Please vote green.
Okay. There being no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to adopt the conference committee report for House File 3420 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion prevails, and the clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by conference.
Third reading, House File number 3420, as amended by conference.
Third reading as amended by conference. Discussion. I recognize the member from Pine, Representative Nelson N.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And most of you have probably heard me speak on agriculture on the floor before. And I'm going to talk a little bit about drought relief tonight. And ironically, it's too wet for me to plant. You know, we're on the 21st of May. I have yet to put a seed in the ground. It's too wet. And if you don't think God has a sense of humor, all the praying we did for rain last summer, he answered that starting about 2 months ago. We've been getting rain. And while I'm thankful for that, there are people that really needed drought relief. And Department of Agriculture last July started having bi-weekly meetings on what can we do. There were some grazing areas that were open, or areas opened up to grazing. There was provisions put in for allowing for hauling and moving feed and water, and allowing farmers to farm and reducing the regulations out of the way, not encumbering them. And there was talk back in July of starting a possible special session, and probably in September, and having a drought bill, drought relief available. And here we are literally in the 11th hour. Yeah. And we're finally getting something out, maybe. And this is too little too late for many. And it's frustrating that when we work so hard on this, that it's likely not to pass. Last evening we got done early enough. I went home quick. Not that far that I can't drive home. And this spring we had a litter of kittens born. And if you saw, I posted a Facebook video because my kids are playing around with a little laser and a kitten. And there's a whole lot of fun things watching a kitten and a laser. And my 7-year-old was laughing hysterically about it, and it was quite funny. Until I realized that kitten was the legislature and the laser is the deal. We're not going to catch it. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. We're not going to catch it. I think too many have not really taken this session all that seriously. And that's unfortunate, because there's people that really needed our help. And while I'd love to say I could support this bill tonight, I'm voting against it because this is too little too late, and it doesn't do what Minnesotans expected us to do. So I'm sure it'll pass the House, but I'm voting no, and it's with very mixed emotions that I do that, because there is good things in here. It's just not enough. So with that, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would encourage a red vote.
Any further discussion? I recognize the member from Chicago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And thank you, Representative Nelson, for your comments, particularly on the drought relief. You know, farmers have been waiting for this drought relief since last summer. Farmers have been waiting almost a year for this drought relief. And here, the Democrats are holding it hostage. They're holding hostage this drought relief for our farmers for $65 million in new spending. So the only way we can give drought relief to our farmers is if we agree to $65 million in additional spending. $65 million. And this is, of course, you know, we went through the math yesterday. We have already spent, as everyone knows, we passed a fully funded state government budget last year. That bill included $140 million for the agriculture bill. $140 million. And now, not only are we spending an additional $32.5 million in this biennium, so $32.5 million on top of the $140 million we already spent. We're also already going to spend another $32.5 million for the next budget. We're not even working on that budget yet, but the Democrats are spending your money because there is never enough money for the Democrats. They can't. They just can't help themselves. This 4-4-4 deal, right? We're going to get $4 billion in spending, $4 billion in tax relief, $4 billion will stay on the bottom line. Well, frankly, we are in the worst recession in our lifetimes. Biden-Walz inflation is crushing our economy right now. Crushing. My constituent, her bill for her utilities, her utility bill went up $200 in a single month. Your constituents are going to pay $6.50 for a gallon of gas this summer. I tried to buy 3 dozen eggs for $10 a couple of weeks ago. But to heck with Minnesotans, to heck with the fact that they need to make their family budgets this summer, we are going to throw away money after money after money, and we're talking billions of dollars, because the Democrats just can't help themselves. If this deal passes, we are increasing this state budget by 17% over the last biennium. And that's on top of billions and billions of dollars from the federal government. And it's all for show. None of this money is necessary. And the one thing we should be doing, drought relief for our farmers, is going to be held hostage by the Democrats for $65 million in spending. This is nonsense. And once again, you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Further discussion? All right, I recognize the author of the bill, Representative Sundin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a terrific bill for the forest. It's a terrific bill for ag. It's an especially terrific bill for broadband users throughout the state, both urban and rural areas. So please vote green.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Members voting remotely, please vote. Members, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of the members who have not voted yet?
Acom.
Acom, I.
Acom, I. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hausman.
Hausman, I.
Hausman, I. Katiza Watun.
Tizo Atun, I.
Katiza Watun, I. Mariani. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, I. Mecklin.
Eklund, no.
Mecklin, no. Moran.
I.
Moran, I. Murphy.
Murphy, I.
Murphy, I. Sandsted.
Sandsted, I.
Sandsted, I. Thompson.
Thompson, aye.
Thompson, I. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 69 ayes and 64 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by conference and its title agreed to.